Okay, yeah, so here we are. It didn't ask me if I really wanted to do this. Okay, hi everybody. This is this is Joanne, Science Goddess on Twitter, and I'm here with my co-host of Read Science, Jeff Schomeyer, and we are so happy to have Emily Anthes join us again. She joined us back when we first started, so 7 years ago, 6 years ago, whenever she had her book, Frankenstein's cat. I was going to say guest. Okay, so Frankenstein's cat and Emily, we're so glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be back.
Yay. So you have recently published a book called The Great Indoors, The Surprising Science of How Buildings Shape Our Behavior, Health, and Happiness.
I hope they're happy about that. Not to recap the entire table of contents precisely, but talking about these environments and trying to look into see how design of the environment affects people. The topics that you covered in various chapters were, as Joanne said, in the home. There was people who were building for autistic people and other people with disabilities. You looked at prisons, you looked at the hospitals with their operating rooms inside, you looked at schools, particularly in elementary school and the environment for it. You even looked at space, you looked at mud houses and other things. And I feel like I'm leaving out several already. It was
the workplace,
a big one on the workplace where we learned that just because you're productive doesn't mean you're comfortable.
Right.
And that some people like it warmer and some people like it cooler, but you can still learn things about it. That sounded particularly complicated. And I was also, I think there were a couple that particularly caught my eye. I'll come back to the one, but prisons did, because it seems like there's so much possible room for improvement, plus the fact that it's hard to imagine enough political will to do much improvement about some of that. But I don't know, it could be, where did you draw the line for horrible stories about bad prison design and how people were treated and why there might be, and then justifying some cause for why it's to everybody's benefit to make prisons a better place?
Well, I don't think I drew the line anywhere when it comes to horrible stories. I mean, as you saw, I interviewed a number of men who had been in solitary confinement, in some cases for years. Yeah. And I didn't have room to tell. I corresponded with more of them than I could include, so I didn't have room to tell every story. But I wasn't I wanted to relay their real experiences. So I don't think there was anything I left out because it was too horrible. Mm-hmm. It was just a more matter of space and the reader doesn't need to hear from every single person.
Are pretty horrible too. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess the argument for why people should care about prisons is, I have a couple answers to that. I mean, one is just sort of the larger moral issue of what kind of society do we want to be and how do we want to treat these vulnerable, marginalized people. And for me, that's enough. But if that's not enough, there's an economic argument that our supermax prisons, which are incredibly cruel and inhumane, are also incredibly expensive to run. And some states have actually started shutting them down. And, I think one reason that criminal justice reform has become bipartisan is because some people on the more conservative side have realized how much money we're spending locking people up in these incredibly harsh environments.
And I'm sorry, but in the example that you talked about, and one of the really good data-driven places where you can show in the outcomes, but you talked about this an incarceration place for women that seemed to some people would be described as a little too country club-like, but had certain things similar to the hospitals of more nature involvement, a bit more of this, and the way that the residences were built gave some more freedom of movement while still keeping an eye on people without feeling so intrusive. A thing that you can measure is not only the outcomes, recidivism, and things like that, but the naysayers for this particular place said, you can't put in this nice furniture, they won't take care of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you find out that, I don't know if it's a conclusion yet from the data, but when you treated the inmates better, they behaved better.
Yeah, one of the most interesting interviews I did on that was a guy named Rich Wenner, who's really like one of the foremost thinkers on prison design. He's been studying it for decades. But he said, one of the things that our environment does is it communicates messages about what kind of place it is and what people expect of us. And so when you go into a prison or a jail that's all concrete, all bars, everything's bolted down to the floor, that communicates like, you can't be trusted. We think of you as savages or as animals, and like, we expect you to act accordingly. Whereas when you have actual furniture and, a place that feels more home-like, that sort of communicates that we expect you to take care of yourself and to take care of this place. And, the environment can be a really powerful way to set those expectations.
And yeah, that must have made an influence, because it made enough of influence on me as the reader that I wrote down the quotation. You quoted him as saying, prison design creates expectations. That just seems like suddenly that's a whole motto for many of this, is that in all of these cases, there are expectations.
And it's in the same chapter because I thought this was really resonant. There's a study of schools and adolescents, and researchers have found that adolescents that go to schools that are better maintained and just sort of more pleasant environments, not only do better academically, but have more belief in their ability to succeed. And her theory is similar, which is that like the environment's communicating, like if it's a nice, well-maintained environment, that like this is important and you are important and you are of value. And when the environment is poorly maintained, it sort of communicates that you are not of value. So that can be a really powerful signal, I think.
Yeah, and speaking of schools and going back to an earlier chapter about schools, the school was trying to be designed to get people to be more active and healthy, and also make better food choices. And so for that reason, they did things like get rid of big freezers that could hold ice cream treats and things like that, or long walks from one place to another. But actually, some of these changes weren't readily accepted, right? They were met with resistance.
Yeah, and the walks were one of them, which is, it seems like encouraging walking throughout the school day seems like a no-brainer. But, the teachers obviously have a different perspective on that. And there's, this is a school where the students struggle a lot on the state's standardized tests. It's a high poverty district. And, the teachers are saying every time we have to take a 10-minute walk to get somewhere, like we lose instructional time and we already don't have enough of it. And so it's really, it's a balance between all of these competing demands. And it's difficult.
Right. Well, I think of when you talked about these long walks, I always think of the walk from the airplane to the luggage retrieval. It's like, who thought of that? But then I guess it makes you feel like you're waiting less.
No, there have been studies on that like, I can't remember where it was done, but passenger satisfaction rates like soared at this airport after they designed in longer walks because there was less waiting time for their baggage.
Oh, that would have been, I know your book could become very, very huge, but airports would have been a really nice.
I thought that was one of the sections that ended up having to get the axe, but that would.
We were talking about hospitals. My question was, when is flying by air going to become customer centric?
I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. So I was particularly interested, and maybe Jeff too, but in the chapter for people who are differently abled, autism, hearing impaired, and how to create living spaces for that, with the flexibility to accommodate people with these different abilities. And Jeff actually works at Gallaudet. He's not in the section that is trying to recreate the different color to contrast the skin and things like that.
Something I was going to bring up. So my contribution, before you get to talk for the rest of the show, about it, is that I work in disability support.
Mm-hmm.
So we're the ADA office on campus who accommodates students with disabilities. Where at the Gallaudet campus, by the way, deafness is not accommodated because it's accommodated for everyone, which has an interesting resonance because a lot of administrative type people will resist accommodations because of cost, trouble, and things. And I very often end up telling stories again about how accommodation was mostly about physical barriers about 30 years ago for wheelchair users and other visible things like that. And people strongly resisted putting in curb cuts and wheelchair ramps and automatic door openers, which, zoom ahead by 30 years, are now universally used, are welcomed by parents pushing strollers, are the first things that we clear of snow on the ramps in the winter because everybody can use the ramp and many people prefer to. And honestly, if I see as many as 20% of students opening a door by pulling on it rather than pressing the button, I would be amazed. So it was so helpful to have you point out that even in the big examples where you were talking about people who are designing for people who have autism, that good design for people with autism is also just good design.
Good design.
And one of the people I quote in this chapter says, like, what we're talking about is, she calls them neurological curb cuts. So curb cuts are this famous example where they were designed, explicitly for a certain use case, people in wheelchairs, but they made life better for all sorts of people in a lot of ways. And so something similar, like, something that comes up. Well, I guess I should say first a caveat that, like, there's no one design that's good for autistic people. The same way there's no one design that's good for everyone. There's no one size fits all. But certain themes and solutions emerge again and again. And one of them, for instance, is soundproofing, because of a lot of autistic people are very sensitive to sensory stimuli. Well, that's something that, like, I would love to have in my apartment too, soundproofing and flexibility and, like, all those things are good for everyone. And so it's not some, quote unquote special use case, but really thinking about how to make environments that work for everyone.
Right. So neurotypicals can absorb some of these disruptions, these constant, and maybe autistic people don't always. It depends on the person, of course.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it doesn't bother neurotypicals, just that perhaps they can deal with it a little more easily.
Absorb it better, yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing someone said to me was that, someone, say, with autism might not be able to sort of tolerate some of the quote unquote bad design that the rest of us just accept. And so in some ways they help highlight, like, the problems in design and environments that, are bad for everyone, but because they're less tolerant of it, might be able to help us figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, I think that's very highlighting, to highlight the flaws in design. It seems to be a beneficial thing for everybody. So,
can you see those lessons that, there were these smaller examples of buildings and things designed for communities like this? And they're special, they're individual instances, but can you see those things flowing into a more general design understanding among architects and other designers and builders and community designers? You think the way curb cuts have become almost a normal thing and ramps are just built in?
I mean, I think we're not anywhere close to that yet, but I do think we're starting to see like a number of public amenities and spaces are adding like sort of not escape rooms, but like places where people who are overwhelmed can go calm down. You know, seeing them in museums and sports stadiums and zoos. And you're also seeing like movie theaters have like low sensory stimulation screenings where like they turn the sound down a bit. So I think
we are officially rolling.
All right, cool.
I'm nervous.
Why? Don't you do this all the time?
I always get nervous, especially when I want to do somebody's story, right? You know, because for me, it's all about being a vessel for the story.
Right.
So I want to make sure that
I'm telling you, I'm sure it's gonna be just. I'm sure it's gonna be just fine. I just appreciate you doing this.
Oh, yes, of course. You know, I was really glad that you even reached out to me, like in the way that you did. And I would say right now I'm at a point where before I used to have to
reach out to
yes, and now people are just hitting me up and I'm like, this is crazy
Yeah,
in a good way.
In a good way. Because to be honest with you, I was just thinking about this in the car. I was like, yo, like nobody's going to give it to you. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't have a hustler's mentality with this, it's a bunch of amazing singers that got projects out, but you don't know because they're not doing, I don't know if they have the mindset to do press or to do, you know, podcasting or anything of that nature to tell the people that they exist.
Yeah.
But I come from that. The old school, watching artists do press runs and they go on like 2 and 3 and 4 or 5 different radio stations in one day.
In one day.
Doing all of the drops for the radio stations and what.
Yeah.
I've seen that in real life. So.
And you're doing some amazing things. So before because we about to have a whole convo right now, but I want to make sure I introduce you. So what's up, fam? It is your girl Rose with the Spotlight DMV. I am coming to you live from Black Cow out here in Bowie. And I'm so excited to be here with my special guest today. Oh my goodness, y'all. You're in for a treat with his story, with his music, with everything that he has going on. So I would like to welcome my guy, Stephen.
Yeah, that's my government. Yes, I'm Stephen.
My guy, Stephen Gillis, also known as Sing Steph to the Spotlight. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And so, you know, we met on the promo tour for the Love Doctor.
Yes.
And it was such a nice event. And you and your production crew, y'all came through. And I had not heard of you at that time. But let me tell y'all, when he hit that mic, I didn't forget him after that.
That means I'm doing my job good, very well. I'm doing my job.
Yes, and you know, I mean that because then after that, the next time I saw you, you were performing at Sounds and Spirits. If y'all don't know what that is, it is the live band open mic that goes on monthly throughout DC. And so you were a part of the D'Angelo tribute.
Yeah.
And you know, we were all. That was a hard one. A hard one.
It still is.
Yes. And you did it justice. And so when I saw that you were going to be there, and I was like, oh, I got to go. I got to go. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you stuck with me when I heard you sing in July. And so I'm so honored to have you here. So let me fully introduce you. Okay, guys, I made my notes because I wanted to make sure I did him justice. So I'm sitting down with musical artist, singer, songwriter, vocal producer, storyteller, and curator, Stephen Gillis, also known as Sing Steph. And so I really want to talk about all the work that you have upcoming. You know, you have an album drop that's about to come out.
Yeah.
You just had some songs featured on the
On the
Love
Love
Doctor.
Doctor, most
Yeah.
officially, yeah.
But before we get into all of that, I really like my audience to know who a person is, the
Right.
person behind all the music, when the lights are out, all that good stuff. I want them to know you. So tell us about Stephen Gillis before the mic, before Sing Steph.
Man.
Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Stamford, Connecticut, right? That was 82. I spent like about 9 years in Stamford, Connecticut. So that's like the suburbs outside of like the Bronx and Harlem and that whole area. Then we moved to Virginia Beach in 1990. So I was raised in the 757. Anybody knows about the 757, you know,
Yeah.
like that was during the time when Teddy Riley had first got there. So Teddy Riley was doing like these talent shows at the high school and different things of that nature. So being there, single parent, younger sister, my grandparents, growing up in church, singing in church, and you know, just being a regular kid trying to figure life out, you know?
Yeah.
Figuring out that thing that kind of sets me apart. And I wasn't a liked kid, you know, because you know, back in them days, you know, we were kind of raw with each other. Like,
listen, you know, up here in the DMV, growing up, you had to know how. Then we call it joning, where you talking shit to each other. You had to know how to have them snappy comebacks.
I was not quick on my feet. I wasn't quick on my feet with the words. So, you know, I got into writing. I would basically be an introvert, stay in the house. So it was Yo MTV Raps. It was Rap City. It was Teen Summit.
Yeah.
It was Video Soul, which turned into 106 in Park and what is it, TRL.
Yes.
So all of that music and watching those artists and weekly just, you know, just tuning in to those, looking at, you know, those artists, it kind of just sparked the flame in me, man. And around second grade, I really discovered I had a voice because I was singing to the girls. That was the only way I could get. That was the only way I could get to play. So, you know, during recess, me and my guys, we would gather around the swings or the monkey bars, and we would sing Shy. Yeah, we would sing Shy. We would sing Jodeci. You know, with Blackstreet.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like when I started to get the singing bug. And you know, teenage years, being a typical teenager in the streets, you know, trying to get girls, trying to, you know, figure it out. And I put the singing to the side because, you know, growing up in that culture, they sing.
Yeah.
So I got into rapping. I started rapping, but then that's how I was able to kind of learn my writing ability, putting words together.
And you said you weren't quick with it, but to be a rapper, you gotta you know, especially if like you're battle rapping or somebody asks you
I never battle rap. Anytime they asked me to do a freestyle, I had this one rap.
The go-to.
I had the go-to rap. 16 bars. I would spit that religiously, you know. And then you know, just got more into the writing. I would save up my dollars and my quarters.
Yeah.
And go to the studio with my, you know, with some homeboys of mine. And we would put our money together to go get an hour, which is like $55 an hour or something like that.
So and this was as a teen? You
were like 12, 13 years old.
Wow,
you know?
Okay.
So I always had an idea of what I wanted to do from, you know, a little kid.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be in music. So then I guess I dropped out of high school. Right? It was like 10th grade. I always knew I was different. I couldn't learn the same way that everybody else is looking at the textbook, take the quiz, pass it, and repeat. I was always like an audio visual learner. So I had to put my hands on something in order for me to get it.
Yeah.
So got my GED, fast forward, went to culinary art school.
Oh, you could too.
Yes, I am that is my trade. I am
but
a
that wasn't in the research.
Nah. I let that out. Now I only cook for, the family. I cook at home and try to get, some artistic, frustration out. Try to fix up something. I did become an executive chef. I was like the youngest executive chef that was on a contracted company at the Department of Energy.
Oh, wow.
That was like 2012. So I accomplished, quite a bit in culinary, but my heart was still in music.
No. And I really love that, you said you were singing in church, and a lot of Black singers get their start in the church, especially because church is a place where, they are going to encourage you. They're going to be like, sing, baby. And so it helps you to break out of that shell. But just at the age of 12 and 13, that teenage age, you're saving up money to go to the studio. Not a lot of young people will be doing that. So I really love that. But you have such an interesting background in the path that you're taking, because you're expressing your creativity, like you're dabbling in different ways to express your creativity through writing, through singing, through cooking. And so when you talk about that path into cooking and becoming a culinary chef, how did you then get back into music?
Well, even when I was in culinary, I still, because at that time I was heavy in church. So I put out a gospel album under another name back in 2009 called Simo in Technicolor. It's still out, like you can still find it on DSPs, wherever you get your music from. And I did that. I was able to travel and tour across the country, do the Dove Awards, do Stella Awards. I performed with Tone, Molly Music, Kirk, Dietrich Hatton, a few noted gospel artists. And around 2010, I fell back from it. I ain't gonna go into details as to why I fell back, but I'll just say something happened.
Yeah.
And I just took a step back because it messed my head up as far as like, because you think when you get into the industry, you think, we're about saving souls, making a change.
Yeah.
No, we're still about getting money.
It's a business. At the end of the day, it's a business.
And sometimes the means to get to that business, it messes you up.
Yes. And I mean, I know you're talking about, like, are you talking about gospel specifically or just the industry in general?
The industry in general, but at that time it was gospel. So that was the shock. That was a shocking thing to me.
Yeah.
Because I was young, naive, just wanted to sing and had a chip on my shoulder because I wasn't in the in crowd. So I would always go out there with an agenda to try to murder everything, But that was kind of eating at my soul. So I took a step back, and then I got into background work. So I was doing background vocals for other artists.
Yeah.
My first background job was for an artist by the name of Kelly Nicole Price. She wrote she co-wrote Deja Vu for Beyonce.
Okay. Wait, are we talking about the Kelly Price?
Not the Kelly Price.
Okay.
Shout out to Kelly Nicole Price, man. She's the one. She's like one of my elder statesmen in the game. She kind of raised me and a few other artists in the area, and did that. Which in return, when I moved up to this area, started doing background work for Lisette, TT.
Let me tell you, I grew up with Lisette for a short period of time. I met her in middle school, and we used to hang real tough.
Yeah, man.
And I knew that girl could blow.
Young, sad, and blue, man. You're not hip to Lisette TT. You need to get hip.
Yes.
A pillar. So I did background for her, and I ended up doing background vocals for Little John Roberts. He's a well-noted drummer all around the industry. He's played for Jill Scott, played for Prince, played for everybody. Janet Jackson, did that for a while. And I still do background. I do background vocals for Deborah Bond. She's another staple in the DMV area. Moo Fresh,
Yes.
you know, do backgrounds for her as well. So that's still a passion that I still am involved in, you know, helping other artists with their artistry.
And you know, I love that because that is a part of what I really noticed about you and the work that you're doing. And we'll get into that about how you're creating space to highlight people in the arts, not just musically,
Right.
but you know, in paintings and things like that. So we'll get into that. But what I do want to ask you is about making it in this area, because I know that that was a huge question that Dior Ashley was asking from DC Music Summit. She's the founder of DC Music Summit. And a question that she had posed to a lot of local artists in this area, do you have to leave this area to make it in the music industry? So did you leave?
I left my hometown. I left the 757 in 2010. And I came up here, and even when I got up here, it still took the leg work and the hustle to even get to where I'm at today. I don't necessarily believe that nobody has to leave where they're from. I mean, unless it's for other reasons, like security, whatever, you know, personal thing that you may have to deal with when you get into the industry. But leaving is not a necessity because from the power of technology, you can work from anywhere, you know. Now, you know, would it be more maybe easier for you if you were to go to LA or New York? Yeah, I mean, I thought about it, but I don't. DMV, DC, Northern Virginia, Maryland. This is my home, and I don't plan on going nowhere.
And I think that we're kind of privileged in this area, and I say that just recently coming from a trip to Tulsa.
Wow.
Where I visited a friend. I visited a friend that moved out there.
Okay.
But you know, we were doing some tours, and I was talking to someone that was telling me about some of the movements that are happening out in Tulsa for Black people.
Right.
And so we went and looked at some of the towns and stuff. And you know, coming from this area, my expectation was something different. And then I went and I was like, oh, we in the country.
Definitely Oklahoma all the way.
Yeah, it's like we're in the country. And I do agree that technology does make it easier.
Yeah.
However, you cannot beat that face to face.
No, not at all.
Being in the same space, in the same room, vibing with people, and things like that.
I would say that you still need to go to those places. You still need to go and shake hands and kiss babies. All right, I'm trying not to fast forward, but I did go to LA last year for Grammy week and was able to connect with you know, other producers, other writers, other executives, and just shake their hand and conversate with them. And some of them I'm still in communication with to this day. And going to New York as well, same thing. And it's important for you to go to those places and let them know that you exist. But as far as like you having to be there 24/7 is not necessary.
That makes sense. And then I know you're also engaged. You're a member of...
Oh, yes. I'm a member of the Recording Academy, which is, we are the people that vote for the Grammys.
And I know that back in the day, like that was always like a big thing for us as Black people, where we would watch these awards and, you know, everybody's singing our music and playing it and the clubs using it in movies. However, we're not winning the awards.
Right.
But I think that us as regular people just watching, we didn't understand that it also takes being involved so that you can push forward the music.
Change.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Sure. And then you're also a mentor as well.
Yeah, I'm a Grammy U mentor. So what we do, we mentor kids that are in college, that want to be in the music industry. And I was able to be a mentor this year. I wasn't a mentor last year, but my first year coming into the Recording Academy, I was a mentor. So mentor for the second time, and it's a privilege to be able to pour into a younger person, you know, all of the experiences and jewels that I've learned, and just try to help them, you know, achieve their dreams as well.
And so you've been in the industry over 15 years.
Yeah.
Like, at what point did you feel like, okay, or do you even feel like that, like, not necessarily I've made it, or do you feel like you've made it, or like, you know, there's some motion happening here, some good stuff?
I mean, it's motion. It's good things happening, but I don't know if I'll ever get to a point where I'll say I made it, because you're only as relevant or as good as your last thing that you did, you know? And so as an artist and as a student, you're always going to be striving to get to another level. You're always going to learn new things about yourself, about your artistry, about the industry. So you got to remain in a mode of being a learned person.
Yeah.
So that kind of keeps me curious. So as far as making it, I won't say I made it until I can get my wife off her job. I'll say that.
Amen.
until I'm able to say, babe, if you want to work, cool, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like I've accomplished something in my life, where I can give my family the next level of living.
Should there be a standard now? When you said that, you said they're back in their districts, they're not even holding town halls. Should there be a standard of how many town halls minimum that you should hold if you're an elected official, given we're paying you with our tax dollars? Because right now we don't have anything, I would assume.
2 points on that, right? Honestly, for those who live in close districts to DC, I feel like you should have a town hall every day. But when you go home and you see someone in the grocery store, or you see them out and about,
you should be having a town hall.
Stop and ask your constituents, how's everything going for you? How you doing? That way you keep the pulse of your district. You know what's going on. You understand what people's struggles are. But at minimum, for people who have town halls, what's stopping you from having virtual town halls? And it doesn't have to be limited to an hour. You can have 2, 3, 4 hour sessions. You can have multiple sessions a day. You can have a morning session and an evening session. Hey, I want to hear from you. What's going on? And then when the House is out of session or the Senate's out of session, you go back to your districts. I think you should have at least one a month. You get paid.
Okay, that was what I was thinking. I was thinking at least once a month you should touch base with your people. Yeah, that's 12 a year. Yeah, that keeps you, like you said, the finger on the pulse.
Virtual with our technology that we have today, in virtual town halls, in-person town halls, you can fly home on a Friday, have a town hall on a Saturday, fly back on a Sunday. It's not that hard to have face-to-face time with your constituents. It's really not.
I totally agree.
You have to want to do it. You have to want to do it. You have to want to be seen. Sorry, I'm getting a little, I'm passionate about this stuff.
Yeah, passion. No, that's fine. That's fine. I agree. I was like, oh yeah, I don't know when I've heard from my elected official. And
if you live local, like Maryland, Virginia, up around here, you should be out all the time talking to people. On the weekend when there's a festival on town, go out there and meet with the people. Don't be scared. They tried to pass in this recent CR. They wanted to put some money in there to beef up their security. If they were actually doing their jobs, they wouldn't have to be worried about their security, because people wouldn't be mad at them and wouldn't be upset because we have a function in Congress, and they wouldn't have to be worried about spending millions of dollars to increase their security funding.
And the red state elected officials, weren't even showing up. So the Democrats started going to the red states because they're like, hey, we'll listen to what you have to say because you know you're elected.
Bernie and AOC. Yeah, I remember.
Yep.
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of status quo politics.
Yeah, a lot of us are. So legislatively, what two things do you want to achieve for the people of Maryland's 5th district?
So, like I said, there's a lot. And I kind of talked about that a little bit with the legislative, with the tax cut. That'd be one thing I want to fight for. But the second thing I'll cover is, since District 5 in Maryland has a really robust federal population, federal workforce. Not only do we have multiple military bases, Andrews, Fort Meade, Pax, Indian Head, etc., right? We have 75,000 plus federal employees. And I was a federal employee up until about a month ago. I was working for the Department of Justice. And I was having my own issues there, as a disabled veteran. I had put in for a reasonable accommodation. I was wrongfully terminated for that. Then I got a lawyer. Then I got rehired. And then I tried to get my reasonable accommodation back. And they refused to give me a reasonable accommodation. So I ended up filing an EEOC complaint. And that kind of happened. Needless to say, I ended up getting some justice from that. But I resigned from the DOJ. And the very next day when I resigned, I went down to Annapolis and I filed with the Maryland Board of Elections to run for Congress. So that was one of the driving factors. There are many driving factors, but that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. So I went down and filed my paperwork to run because I haven't liked what's been going on in the federal government since January 20th with how federal employees are being scapegoated. And all of a sudden now we're the swamp, we're the waste, fraud, and abuse in government. I don't think so. Federal employees are some of the hardest working people and most dedicated people that I've ever had the pleasure of working with outside of the military. And the support that they give, and the contractors as well, because there are thousands of contractors that support federal employees and the military that deserve just as much respect. So I would like to also see something that we do in these CRs to ensure that government contractors also are taken care of in some kind of way. We have to kind of see what that looks like. But I think we can find a way to make sure that everyone who gets paid by the federal government, as far as putting in the work, gets their paychecks. But back to my main point here, I believe that I didn't really like the attacks on the federal government. And I think that the whole DEI issue that they were trying to scapegoat on and say that it's unfair, and now that it's gone, that everything will be strictly based on merit. Everything was already based on merit. I fall into DEI, right, because of my disability. I think what we've done as a Democratic Party overall is I think that we didn't break down DEI enough in layman's terms to actually say that it just means true equality for everyone. It means putting everybody on an even playing field, regardless if you have a disability or anything that's wrong. You're on an even playing field. Everything is merit-based in the federal government. If you go through a competitive process, there are certain hiring paths that you can take, where you may get looked at or given the opportunity to be looked at for certain positions. But everything in the federal government is already merit-based. So by taking away DEI, all they did was punish people who are just trying to still contribute to society. As a disabled veteran, I have various disabilities, some physical, others that, kind of, I'm still productive, but, I need a little assistance. And what DEI does is it just gives everybody, on a level playing field. And we need to make sure that we put that back into place and we do it in a plain language style, make sure it's data driven and it's merit based, that requires agencies to actually, publish dashboards on like, these are our metrics here. These are, the number of people who were hired based off this specific criteria here. And transparency is what we need. We need transparency. We got to show, what it really does and how it benefits. And it's not just for color, for people of color or for minorities. It's for everybody. Because there are people, of all different races who have disabilities or, that need special assistance. And all DEI does is just help them be able to get a platform to be able to apply for these opportunities. And I think we just need to do a better job of articulating that and showing what it is, because people get DEI and affirmative action confused, and they're totally two separate things. And so when I hear people on those talking points, I try to, let them know, the differences between what those are and how each one applies separately. So I think having a strong workforce, protections in there, helping federal employees, especially like myself with the reasonable accommodations. There's a lot of stereotypes out there about people with disabilities that need accommodations. They say that, we're lazy, we're trying to cheat the system, we don't want to really work. But that's not true. Reasonable accommodations are there so people who need assistance can get the assistance so they can be productive members of society and still contribute. That's as simple as that. But people put a negative connotation on it, and how negative connotations and stereotypes, they seem to just travel so fast and
Yeah. So I guess you said a lot, and I was having my thoughts. I wanted to go back to, and then I'm going to go forward. That would be 80% of the population. Well, not 80%, but that would be a large portion of the population on that middle class tax benefit. I'm going to share that with some people and let them know, if they don't see the show, what you're talking about, because like I had a senior say to me that, people love their pets, and they said that the person, and this is on the county level, so you're on the federal level, the next person that gets elected, they want them to allow tax breaks for seniors who have pet care. And I was like, because people put a lot of money into their pets, you get no write-offs for that. And it's almost like some people's pets are their children. They're like a child, if you will, because it's their companion. Exactly. And I've had several people say, the surgery for my cat was $1,500, or the visit to the vet was $800, and they're seniors. So I did agree with the people who were saying that. So I don't know about on the federal level, but that was on the local level. But I really like what you were talking about the tax breaks for the middle class, because they're like the forgotten population. You're either rich or you're poor, and it's like we're trying to dismantle the middle class and give them nothing and make them part of a lower class, if you will, because there's not a lot of services out there for them.
And so PG County is a very affluent area, and then the other surrounding counties are just as good, if not better, in some areas. Like the median household income for this district is anywhere between 98,000 up to like 113,000, depending on where exactly you live in the district and what kind of job that you may have. So we're a very affluent district. Could you imagine if we had a true middle class tax cut, how much extra money that would put into people's paychecks annually to be able to, boost the economy here in District 5?
Yeah.
And that would do wonders for so many people.
Yeah, I totally agree. What's the first thing you want to accomplish for the people of Maryland's 5th District once you're elected?
So
if you can narrow it down to just the one thing you want to do, I know it's many.
This is going to tie back into my community engagement, right? So if I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over, I'm sorry. It's just all my stuff ties in, right?
No, yes, perfect.
I want to have, my ultimate goal is to have a office in every county. So people can actually go to without having to drive all through the district to go to one office. And we even have an office, I believe, in this district. It's not even in the district. It's like right on the border. It's like one of the courthouses outside of District 5. I want to have essentially satellite offices there. But what I want to do on day one, since it would be in my own congressional operating budget, is I want to start off with 2 fully staffed field offices. I think what would be good is to have one in PG County, given its location and everything, and the population center that's here. And then I would like to have one down south in like St. Mary's County. And they would be solely focused on constituent services. I would essentially want to have like a field team assigned there that would actually go out in the community and engage with the citizens on my behalf while I would be in DC. And then when I came in here, I would have an office to work out of, to be able to sit down with constituents, meet with them, discuss their needs, have like those mini town halls that I was talking about earlier, right? To facilitate that engagement. These offices will be dedicated to helping seniors, veterans, small business owners, and just any kind of constituents that come in with concerns. And my constituent field team, I want them to be proactive, not reactive. A lot of times, we sit by the phone in these congressional offices and they wait for constituents to call in and tell them, hey, I got this problem, I need some assistance. I want my teams to be out, set up booths and just be out in the community, engaging, tell us your concerns. How can we help? What do you need from us? We're here to listen, right? Because my campaign right now is all about listening. And, when people submit inquiries, I want them to be tracked, logged, and I want to kind of have a process where if my field team can't, fix the issue, then there should be a process in place where it escalates like up to my chief of staff, right? So it gets the attention that it deserves. And if my chief of staff can't handle it, then obviously, it would come to me and then I would engage at my level. But like I want to have those steps in place and those processes to where we actually have real, community-centric engagement on a ground level where people actually see us out and about. I want to be very active in the community. And then if that goes good, then I would look to extending that reach into the other 3 counties. That way I have 5 counties, I have 5 offices that are out engaging with the community. And they'll see that their congressman is actually cared for them. He actually shows up, and in his absence, he has people there that are competent and can work on his behalf to help meet their needs.
Wow. And that's because of your military background that you're real comfortable being over here, over there, where other people may not even have that vision.
Multitasking, yes.
Correct.
I want people in the district to know. I want people to know in the district that they can reach out and touch me or my office whenever they need to without having to drive for 2 hours or come to DC to knock on my office door, and I may not be there. I want someone to always